Good day everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. And today's interpersonal communication session, we would like to discuss about interpersonal conflict management. Let's begin with the definition of conflict itself. It was derived from Latin phrase called configere, in the literal meaning hitting each other. Conflict usually is a form of dispute or contradiction, the actions of one person resulting in obstructing or harass others. I took this notion from Scannell. Conflict usually comes natural in every relations that we have, especially in the more personified relation. The more intimate the relation, the more intimate or cause and more damage the conflict itself. And conflict usually caused by the difference on perception, objective or goals, and value that we held dearly. Another words of wisdom: conflict is inevitable, but combat is optional. So we can choose to get into physical conflict or war, but the conflict itself, it comes natural in every relationship. Here we have several forms of conflict. The first one is principal and communal conflict. Principal conflict is fundamental conflict because it caused by the difference of values that held by each person. For example, in political value, some of the Americans are Republicans and the other Americans considered to be Democrat. The second is communal conflict. Communal conflict is collective response on something. How netizens react on a matter that become public matter. For example, several months ago we have celebrity scandal in one of the religious band. There was an allegation that the member of the band, two of them actually, were having an affair. And so the netizen reactions towards this matter would become communal conflict. Next one is realistic and the non-realistic one. The realistic usually caused by frustration among two people, because here we are talking about interpersonal communication. For example, in the household, when spouses are disagree about something, they could not communicate the disagreement effectively or fairly. And this energy will pent up into frustration, and finally there will be a conflict in the household. Misalnya pertengkaran antara suami istri yang punya hambatan untuk mengkomunikasikan keresahannya. Hambatan komunikasi itu kemudian membesar menjadi rasa frustasi yang pada akhirnya menyebabkan konflik di antara pasangan suami istri tersebut. The non-realistic one is when we are projecting our frustration towards others. For example, if we are having personal insecurities and we could not deal with that, we usually seek for other insecurities. Misalnya kita punya rasa insecure personal gitu ya. Tapi karena kita tidak bisa mengatasi ini, tidak bisa menerima insekuritas itu, akhirnya kita malah membahas insekuritas orang lain. Mungkin gossiping gitu ya. The third one is personal and super individual conflict. The personal conflict caused by personal self-fulfillment with no regards for others' needs. So it's basically egocentric conflict where one person fulfill his or her needs and not considering for others. The super individual conflict usually implemented or acted in a form of provocation. When an individual who has big influence in the society and he or she made something up that triggers controversial matters. Contohnya misalnya ketika seorang individu yang punya pengaruh besar, misalnya politisi gitu ya, dia punya agenda partai yang harus dia lakukan, pengalihan isu misalnya. Karena ada kader partainya dia yang terjebak korupsi. Nah, untuk mengalihkan isu supaya perhatian media dan masyarakat tidak mengarah ke kasus ini, maka dia akan memprovokasi media dan masyarakat dengan menimbulkan isu lain. Misalnya tiba-tiba ada bom meledak di tempat ibadah dan tempat umum. Nah, itu karena super individual tadi ya, individu yang menyebabkan konflik dia punya pengaruh besar. Next one is express conflict and the unexpressed conflict. The expressed conflict usually causing the relationship to get stabilized, yeah, because it is discussed, it is known by each person that involved in that conflict. On contrary, the unexpressed conflict will cause several problems. For example, ambivalence. Ambivalence is subjectivity. If this subjectivity did not receive appropriate response, and it will cause a bigger problem. For example, confrontation or feud. Jadi konflik yang tidak diungkapkan itu bisa menyebabkan ambivalensi. Ini semacam kegoyahan gitu ya. Pada saat kita punya satu nilai yang harus kita anut, tapi kemudian kita tidak bisa mempertahankan. Ambivalensi itu standar ganda, double standard. Ya. Jadi kita berhak melakukan suatu hal yang dilarang, tapi orang lain kita judge dia salah melakukan sesuatu yang dilarang. Misalnya, telat masuk kelas, nggak apa-apa deh. Tapi ketika lihat temennya masuk kelas telat dari waktu yang seharusnya, gimana sih ini? Kok telat masuk kelas? Itu ambivalensi. The fifth one is attitude and attributional conflict. Attitude conflict usually came in confrontational mode to communicate unpleasant attitude, and the attributional conflict usually caused by addressing different causes as the cause of the problem. Another double standard, I believe. Ya. Jadi konflik perilaku ini biasanya muncul dalam bentuk saling mengkonfrontasi gitu ya. Kedua belah pihak yang terlibat dalam komunikasi mengkomunikasikan atau membicarakan hal-hal yang mereka tidak senangi, tapi dengan cara yang tidak appropriate gitu ya. Jadi misalnya dengan intonasi tinggi, terus ekspresi marah, gitu. Ini akhirnya bisa memicu konflik. Sedangkan konflik atribusional ini biasanya ketika dua orang membahas hal yang sama, tapi mereka menyatakan sebab yang berbeda atas hal yang sama itu. Misalnya Mbak Mas, ketika telat kuliah, kemudian saling menyalahkan. Si A bilang, kan ada toleransi keterlambatan 15 menit. Kemudian si B bilang, wah, aku lagi nggak mood kuliah, jadi aku masuk tapi nelat aja. Ya, sebenarnya itu adalah penyebab hal yang sama gitu. Dan objektifnya juga sama. Tapi dengan alasan yang berbeda, dua orang ini kalau tidak bisa menerima satu sama lain, maka akan menimbulkan konflik. The next one is transgression-based conflict, and the transgressional-based conflict is usually affected by these three factors. The first is focus, second is salience, and the third is consequences. Focus is regulation formed in a relationship. Salience is when one of the person that involved in the communication contributing in violation. The third one is when they are together dealing with those consequences individually. Pada saat atau pada konteks rumah tangga misalnya, yang paling mudah, atau persahabatan. Sepasang sahabat, dua orang ini saling menyepakati kita akan menjaga rahasia satu sama lain. Kemudian salah satu, misalnya si B, ini secara sengaja atau tidak sengaja membicarakan kerahasiaan si A dengan pihak ketiga. Nah, maka tahap berikutnya adalah kedua pihak ini, A dan B, menghadapi konsekuensi dari konflik itu bersama-sama, tapi secara individual. Maksudnya mereka punya reaksi yang berbeda. Si A mungkin diam aja, yang B marah-marah karena dia disalahkan, dan lain sebagainya. And the last one is antagonistic and dialectical conflict. Antagonistic caused by conflicting needs, and dialectical due to interdependence as well as conflicting needs. Antagonistik ketika sepasang sahabat tadi A dan B punya keperluan yang berbeda pada saat ke kampus, gitu ya. Mereka yang tadinya memutuskan bareng, akhirnya mau tidak mau harus berpisah karena ada kepentingan yang berbeda. Nah, ini akan semakin mengekskalasi ketika dua orang ini tidak bisa menerima dan merespon perpisahan itu sebagaimana mestinya. Karena adanya saling ketergantungan, tapi kemudian kepentingannya berbeda. Jadi ada ambivalensi atau double standard di situ ya. Here we have conflict type determined by the cause of the conflict. The first is pseudo conflict, fake conflict made real. Misalnya kita membesar-besarkan masalah yang kecil, bisa sebenarnya selesai dengan dibicarakan. Factual conflict is when we are stating some information and the other person is debating it. This happens recently and in general in the social media when some of them, or I could say an influencer, talk about something and suddenly he or she get attacked by another influencer or netizens, general netizens. The third one is value-based conflict. Value-based conflict is very fundamental conflict. One of the example is religious belief conflict. Yeah, as Muslim, we have several contradictions in society. For example, some of Muslims believe that if we are congratulating Christians, yeah, Christians or Catholics, Merry Christmas, then automatically we are condemned to hell. While some of other Muslims believe that if we just say it with no intention to believe in it with our mind and our soul, that would be okay. Ya. Nah, misalnya value-based conflict ini, katakanlah berdasarkan sesuatu yang sangat fundamental seperti kepercayaan religius ya. Contoh, dalam masyarakat Muslim itu ada kepercayaan kalau Mbak Mas mengucapkan Selamat Natal, itu otomatis akan masuk neraka. Sementara pendapat sebagian Muslim yang lain, kalau cuma mengucapkan tapi tidak mempercayai dari hati, dari pikiran, kita masih memegang teguh keimanan kita, ya nggak apa-apa, karena ini hanya narasi, gitu kan, hanya ucapan saja. The fourth and the fifth conflict type determined by cause is policy conflict, usually conducted by the authorities, when they are not sure about something, they are not prepared themselves with data, but they already formed a regulation to regulate something that they don't understand. Yeah, this could lead into policy conflict. The last one is ego-based conflict. When two persons involved in conflict, one of them, or maybe two of them, has the necessity, keharusan, to win the conflict, to maintain their positive image. It could happen to every one of us, but especially in general, it could happen to someone that has wide influence or big influence. For example, celebrity, politician, and other famous people. Yeah. Here we have 5 of interpersonal conflict causes. The first conflict caused by competition of limited resource. Yeah. As you can see in the conflicted countries, countries or areas, for example, Afghanistan, Syria, as we know each other, that the countries is torn apart by conflict and armed conflict, and they have no suffice supplies for daily needs. They are depending on the donation of daily needs sent to them. Here, of course, we have very limited or quite limited donation. They will fight for each other, fight with each other to win the resource. Misalnya di daerah konflik seperti Syria, Afghanistan, kan karena kebutuhan hidupnya tidak bisa mereka suplai sendiri, mereka mengandalkan donasi dari luar daerah. Dan ini biasanya jumlahnya terbatas. Maka untuk berebut untuk bisa mendapatkan. The second one is interdependence in completing tasks. It is happening when one of your teammates, teman kelompok, does not contribute well in the group tasks. The third one is jurisdictional ambiguity. It is related to policy conflict when the authorities, one with another, has no limitation of authority. Nah, misalnya ada beberapa badan pemerintahan yang mempermasalahkan sesuatu. Padahal di sini mereka satu sama lain tidak punya batasan yang jelas, mana yang masuk kewenangannya, mana yang bukan. Jadi bisa jadi penyebabkan konflik. The fourth one is communication barriers, long distance relationship because of the physical distance. Yeah, the couple or the spouses only connected by phone, by digital media. Yeah, it could cause frustration among them. And this could also lead to conflict if the frustration did not handle well. The last cause of interpersonal conflict would be personality, because yes, that's the basic cause or fundamental cause of a conflict. If you are having boyfriend or girlfriend and you decided to become a couple, it would be a happy moment for you. But in the other hand, it could also lead to conflict if both of you are having the same type of personality. For example, both of you are dominant. Then conflict is quite inevitable for you. Here we have 8 conflict impacts. Conflict, the first one, conflict could cause awareness of 2 persons that involved in a relationship or communication. Suddenly, they are aware that they have problems that needs to be solved in their relationship. Conflict could also comes from personal drive to make changes. For example, you are not achieving good grades last semester, but you didn't want to struggle too much. Yeah? This will cause conflict inside of you. Yeah. So you need to push yourself or push the good side of yourself to make changes. The third one, personal drive to solve problems. For example, if any one of us is trapped was trapped in a toxic relationship. But on the other hand, we need that relationship to maintain our happiness. So we need to push our fighting side to get out of this toxic relationship. Then we will be free. But on the other hand, we will not be having a couple anymore. We're alone. So this is quite realistic example for the third conflict impact, the personal drive to solve problem. And conflict also become a challenge in life. Conflict could cause difference of argument, and sometimes it could be resolving into terms of agree to disagree. Yeah, because that is a mature mutual decision. We are two different people with two different interests, producing two different arguments. Of course, in some point, we need to resolve on something as a win-win solution that we are agree to disagree. Conflict could also eliminate tension in interpersonal relationship because once we talk it out and we got into conflict, then as a result, we moved on from that conflict. In a third person point of view, sometimes we value that certain conflict is really unnecessary and quite irrational. This could lead for us to have a source of entertainment. For example, if you are watching one of our national television program, Indonesia Lawyers Club or ILC, as for me, their debates is quite irrational and doesn't make sense at all because they persist on their own argument without regarding others' argument. This for me quite ridiculous. So it could lead to my source of entertainment. The last one, conflict could also strengthening and enriching relationship. Because after all, in relationship, there are minimum two people involved. And of course, they are two different persons. These are the characters of constructive conflicts. The constructive conflict could tighten the relationship, could make you more intimate towards each other. Conflict could also increase interpersonal trust. And conflict will lead you to accepting the consequences and moved on and become more mature, more better version of you. And conflict could also enrich or improve our conflict dealing competence. For example, if we are having an argument, we could argue with the regular tone without lashing out our anger towards another. Jadi konflik itu juga bisa memperkaya kemampuan kita dalam menghadapi konflik. Ya, pasti namanya dua manusia berinteraksi itu akan ada perbedaan. Ya. Dan kalau kita sudah menyadari ini, bahwa hidup itu tidak harus selalu sama, maka kita akan baik-baik saja. Dan pada saat kita menyatakan keberatan, itu tidak perlu emosional, tidak perlu berapi-api, karena kita sudah belajar dari pengalaman-pengalaman sebelumnya. Maka ya konflik itu juga salah satunya berpengaruh ke kedewasaan emosional. To resolve the interpersonal conflict, first we need to define the conflict itself, why we are disagree towards one another, and each of us come up with solution or alternative solution. And the next step would be implementing the solution. As the solution was implemented, we could conduct on the evaluation. Is it effective or is it not? Or is it no effect? And then we could value another solution by accepting or rejecting. Here we have several of conflict management types. The first is to collaborate and come up with solution. The second is to compromise, meet in the middle. The third is to accommodate each other's need. You accommodate your friend's need and your friend accommodates your need. 4 is quite fatal, by avoiding each other and not talk about it. And the last one is to become competitive, yeah, because each of you or each of us has necessity to win, yeah? And no one's back down. This would be fatal. This is the spectrum or polarization of conflict management types here. On the left corner, this would be low intensity, and on the right corner, that would be the high intensity. Or on the left side, it would be negative, and on the right side, it would be positive. And compromising is meet in the middle. Here we have several strategies dealing with interpersonal conflict for each of us that are involved in conflict. The first is a win-lose or win-win. The second is avoiding each other. The third is force to talk about it. The fourth is face detracting and face enhancing. One is back down, one is came forward. The last one is verbal aggressiveness or argumentative strategies. Verbal aggressiveness is conflict resolution with abuse or dominance. While the argumentative strategies, we came forward together and we talked about it. Here I have interpersonal conflict in an Islamic perspective. Yeah, I took notion from Al-Isra and Al-Imran. In Al-Isra, we have a recommendation or advice to communicate within each other and not to make assumption towards each other. And from Ali Imran, we have recommendation to consult on finding solution. That will be all for today. Thank you very much for joining me. I will see you again next week, and we will talk about the theories of interpersonal communication and preparation of the second competence test. Billahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera.